Good to see you. All right. Now we are on to our informational items. Report of the Lincoln Way Special Education District 843.
Yes, I attended that meeting. We purchased 2 new vans and a bus that was totaled in an accident. Overall, the district is relatively healthy. The next few months we'll continue to do evaluations of the director and review her contract, which is up this June. So I'll keep you updated as we proceed with that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ron. Next item, FOIA requests.
No report.
Thank you. Next, audit findings.
Nothing new to report. As we have done in the past, the summary of the 2017 audit findings are there for your review, and we'll continue to work towards a resolution on those remaining items.
Thank you for putting it in. Next item, proposed budget calendar.
Brad, any changes? Go ahead.
Yes, we added that requested date, May 17th, 2018, for Board of Education to receive budget update and provide feedback. So we've inputted that, but that would be the calendar we'd recommend following. As you can see, it's time to get, moving on this. So,
any other input on the budget calendar?
That's good.
Good. Thank you, Brad, for making those updates. Next, enrollment report.
Brad, go ahead and give an overview of that, please.
yes, I'd like to thank Steve Wallert for helping. Basically, he collected all the data, built a spreadsheet to put together a grade progression analysis, or what we call cohort survival method. It's working on a 3-year rolling average, where we take our known elementary feeder districts, and then we roll those up by calculating out that grade progression ratio and coming up with that, and then applying that to project out future high school enrollments. Basically, in summary, we think over the next 5 years, the district could expect our enrollment to drop by approximately 340 students, bringing our total enrollment to approximately 6,600 students by the fall of 2022. Assuming there's no major change in housing or anything like that. The cohort survival method, it's important that we update it and analyze it and continue to look at it periodically, especially every fall after we get our latest enrollment updates, and we will continue to do that. But it's historically, the cohort survival method is a pretty decent method in projecting enrollments. So with that, we'll answer questions. And Steve's here in the audience. If he has any questions, he could answer to.
Have we updated the 5CAS using these numbers?
With the new evidence-based funding model, the revenue side is neutral to enrollment. So it really just be any class size sectioning. And so that process is really just getting rolling. Once we figure out all of our sectioning, that will be part of the update that will roll together into the 5CAS for, I believe it's the March 1st meeting.
Correct.
So,
I think this is good. I think looking at some other districts use this method, so it's probably kind of moving towards best practices. Are there? It doesn't really have a comparison of what we were looking at. I mean, is there any significant differences between what we were kind of putting out there as projections before and this?
Nothing significant, Chris. Same trends.
This trend, obviously down. I think the other thing you have to kind of look at, and I mentioned this, is when you look at just the birth rate in Illinois, and it's down. It looks the chart, if you go onto the Illinois Department of Health or whatever, looks very similar to this, and you look at it, and from 2000 to I think the last year they have is like 2015, it's declined every year, and it's now just starting to tick up. But when you think about that, it started ticking up in 2013-14. When you add 14 years when they'll be in high school, it's off of this chart when you kind of have that. So that's not to say specifically that's what's going to happen in this district, but that's kind of, one of the headwinds that you're facing is just the population decline. And Will County had the same thing. Will County had some big growth going into 2000, and it started falling off by it was like almost 10,000 births, and then it went down like 600, and it's, so, that headwind, you can have more building permits, but those things take a long time to kind of ramp up.
Coupled with just the
Out-migration, yeah.
Out of the state, especially with the border counties. I mean, we can get to Indiana pretty quick.
Well, with Amazon and Apple,
Might as well grab Google while you're at it.
Yeah, right.
I have just a quick question. What is the current, we're operating 3 buildings now.
Yes.
What's the current capacity of those 3 buildings?
Well, we've used 2 different numbers in the past. We've talked about, we have the architect's capacity, which is 2,500 at West, and then we're at 3,750 at both East and Central. The architect's number, that's the assumption of basically each classroom being utilized with 28 to 30 students. We know that's not necessarily the case. So a comfortable number, a functional capacity would be somewhere around 2,300 at West, and 3,370 at East, and 3,150 at Central, give or take 50 students. And that's us going through and saying, okay, these are our special ed classrooms. We accounted for 14 to 16 students. Some of our larger areas, band, choir rooms, 35 to 40 students. And so going through and counting those numbers, so that would be all told district-wide, somewhere around 8,700. 8,700 to 9,000 would be still a comfortable number for 3 schools.
If this is projected out in just a handful of years, we have basic capacity of 9,000 to 6,600 kids.
Correct.
Interesting long-term planning thought. Kind of being serious.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
now's the time to start to think about what that means.
And as the number for programming, as we've seen, is 2,000. If we're around 2,000 students, that 1,900 to 2,000 students, that gives us enough students to run our AP programs, our honors programs, our music programs. That 2,000 is the number. As you recall, when we were, at 1,800 or less at North, and then at 1,300 to 1,400 at West, we were traveling students all day. And we now don't have to do that. In fact, our traveling now is pretty much limited to ROTC between West and Central. And so that 2,000 number, as long as we can maintain that 2,000 in our buildings, that's what's best for our academic program. If we start to drop below that, then yes, then we're looking at traveling again. And
I'm sure this is something we can vet out later.
Correct.
I'm not going to know the answer, but, I mean, we've got 5, 6 feeder districts in the 5 feeder districts, okay.
5, 6 junior highs.
Okay, so where is there any pattern, like at certain districts that are declining versus growing, or, I mean, because my point would be here that if you get the largest building at 3,400, let's just say on average, this whole, and you're at 2,200 per building, I mean, you've got a third of the building that wouldn't be used. I'm just planting that seed.
Sure. Sure.
I mean, this kind of throws an interesting twist into it, because I would assume that, just, and again, not knowing what's going to happen with North Point or whatever down in the Manhattan area, but that's the one district that seems to be accretive.
Yes, they're seeing some moderate growth. In fact, the superintendents, feeder superintendents, and I just have discussed this fall in terms of enrollments. In fact, I believe we put those in a previous meeting this fall, but we can bring those back. We know that Summit Hill is going to see a slight decline. We know that Mokina has kind of leveled off and is seeing a little bit of a decline. Your new Lennox grade schools, Martino there for a while was seeing a little bit of a decline, or Liberty was seeing some growth, and at this time Manhattan is seeing some growth. But those are numbers we'll continue to monitor. I have not discussed move-ins with the superintendents to see what happened over the holiday break, because typically you will see some students move during the winter break, but you know, the next sound number will be next October, and we'll get another look.
North Point though is commercial, not residential.
No, but it may impact.
Oh, people
you know,
might move.
moving to Manhattan.
Okay.
Even this morning, there were people in Elwood were putting their homes up for sale.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what does that do to the dynamics of the Manhattan structure? I don't know, but just, I mean, because this becomes a very sensitive issue. I mean,
Yes.
People are going to make real estate decisions and other decisions based on where that educational process may be. So if we start to see it tilting one way or the other, I think the more we can share that message, the earlier we can share that message, and the better off everybody would be. But we're way out on the curve there. But
Sure.
Just want to start to dig into the data.
Something to keep looking at. Yep.
How accurate have we been, 1 to 2 years out? I mean, we know what the feeder districts have. I mean, these 1 to 2 year numbers for sure are, usually play out
Those are going to
pretty
be pretty
accurately.
accurate. Those are going to be pretty accurate, yeah. We may see a swing 1 year with maybe 30 additional kids going to a private school, and then the next year we may see 15 or 20 coming back this way. We've seen some students here at semester break. We've seen some movement of students. Athletically, students can leave a private and come to a public and participate right away. So that's always a factor. If a student is a freshman chooses the private setting, they get one free transfer, as it were, to come back and become immediately eligible. So we do from time to time see that occur. But the numbers 1 and 2 years out are accurate.
Do we have any idea on the number of building permits, or when we can get some numbers on those?
Yeah, some of the historical trends in there.
But for 18, like when will those numbers start coming out?
Couple of days.
Yeah, we'll start.
Only have in a couple of days for the 2017 permits.
That's the,
Yeah, see, a couple of
Right.
days.
You say a couple of days.
Couple days we'll have the complete.
So I'm sure most of them are going to be in the first half of the year for 18.
Which actually, I mean, it's, we're at double the peak, or I'm saying double the low point. I mean, 2008 was 221 building permits. We're up to, 2016 was 450. That's interesting, yeah. But it's obviously not back up to where it was in 2007.
the other component that is difficult to calculate is existing home sales.
Right.
People have to find urban family who ran K through 12 and still are sitting in the domicile with nobody in it, waiting for a new family of 5 to move in.
Or more importantly, my parents, who
Yeah.
are, been sitting there for 20 years plus.
It's an interesting topic. Yes, question. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Good work. Our next informational item, building and grounds report.
Buildings and grounds report is included in your backup materials. If you have any questions, I'm sure Rich can answer them. Does anybody have any discussion or questions for Rich?
It looked like we were running anything jumping out at you, it looked like we were pretty much in line with the prior year and with budget, so.
Looks like we're right on with the prior year when
Yeah.
I subtract the pavement maintenance and the
Right.
repurchase of natural gas.
This is another good report.
Yeah.
Very detailed. All right. Next, community relations.
Once again, community relations report in your backup materials. Taryn has provided a pride sheet with a number of happenings at Lincoln Way for your review.
Next, the asset of the month.
Asset of the month for February, hard to believe already, is cultural competence. Young person has knowledge and comfort of people of different cultural, racial, ethnic backgrounds. At home, teach your children about their heritage, encourage them to feel proud of their cultural, ethnic, and racial identity without feeling superior. At school, model acceptance and appreciation of differences. Make these stated values in your school and district. Don't tolerate racism, bias, or prejudice. In the community, include the images and voices of a variety of people in community publications, advertisements, posters, and promotional materials.
Legislative report.
I included in the backup material, an article from, let's see, I believe this is the Tribune, but regarding Rauner's veto creates uncertainty for Will County schools. Governor Rauner vetoed the school funding bill, which he's been taking credit for over the last several months. We don't yet know the true impact of that bill. It's something Brad has been working with, so that'll become a little bit more clear here over the next couple of days. It deals with, excuse me, the scholarship, some of the scholarships to private schools that Rauner wanted to be part of the bill. And evidently he didn't catch that the first time through, and so now he's come back and he's vetoed. So we'll have to wait and see the uncertainty created by that veto. As you can see here, Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant is not happy, and I know the sponsor of the bill, help me out, Brad, the sponsor of the bill is down by Decatur. Andy Menard is not pleased as well. So we're going back to work on that. Brad, anything to add at this point, or we're just going to have to wait out and see what it means for us?
No, we just have to wait and see. It's my understanding that the core funding bill, which was 1940, whatever, Senate bill for whatever, that passed. But this is the additional $350 million that was to provide additional funding to the evidence-based funding model. And that's why he vetoed it, because it didn't include some of the scholarship stuff. So, it's my understanding that the core, or the hold harmless, that is the funding needed, but it was that additional amount that ISBE was in the process of determining based on where people were on their adequacy. That's the money he vetoed out. So no new money until they can get that veto solved, but as far as the minimum, that should still be flowing because it was part of that original base bill, if you will.
So we'll have more information in February as this unfolds.
Yes, we keep a real keen ear to this, because the longer it sits out there, something else might get added to it, and all of a sudden takes it a little bit off the path. That's kind of what I'm afraid of.
Jennifer is an education background, wasn't she?
Correct. She was the regional superintendent for Will County. Yes.
All right, that's superintendent's report.
I have a couple items for you this evening. The first I put, we sent out a survey, just a very simple survey to the staff who is using Aunt Nancy's, just kind of as a feedback as we are 6 months into the new year. So basically just the question, how many children do you currently have? How many will you use next year? Rate the quality of experience, and then provide some responses if you have any concerns, or there were also some positives. But as you can see, came back positive, 67% very good, 16 good, 13 average, and then 6% rated as poor. So we received some feedback. I will share that with Aunt Nancy's, but also just wanted to share it with the board. Continue to monitor the contract as we move through this fiscal year. This is the first of a 3-year agreement. The next.
So those are, number 3 is percentages?
It should be percentages. Does it not add up to 100, Chris? Percentages, Murph?
Yeah.
Yeah.
20. It would have been, interesting, there were 77 responses. We didn't get copied on that.
I can get those too. Some of them I'm going to have to white out due to sensitivity.
Okay.
But let me get to work on that. That's why I didn't add that at this point.
The numbers.
The second item is, as I've shared with the board, we did have some trespassing and break-ins at Lincoln Way North over the past couple of weeks. We continue to work with Will County on that investigation. We'll be moving forward to gain restitution to those. It's an unfortunate isolated incident. Students will be held accountable both at school and then also through the justice system. We are waiting and working with Will County as the criminal side unfolds. Then, as that follows the process, then we will begin the process of restitution and becoming whole for the damage that's been done. The question, well, does this happen? We have had issues time to time in all of our buildings. Large high schools, large buildings, it happens from time to time. There was one year, somebody took the big penny off the front of Lincoln Way Central, and it was missing for a couple of weeks until a mom called us and said she might get half this. No, probably shouldn't. So, it's unfortunate, and it's something we'll continue to work through. Rich and his staff, we've made some adjustments. Part of the not having a cleaning crew there from 4 o'clock until 10, 10:30, 11, 12, as we do in our other buildings. So we're working on our coverage so that nothing like this happens again. But as I said, unfortunately, it does happen from time to time in all of our buildings. Our buildings, we have to just continue to remain diligent and monitor our buildings. Any questions or concerns that I would be able to answer at this time?
For the rest of the board, I was there with Dr. Tingley and with Rich. It was not pretty initially, but it's amazing what Rich's staff, the contractors, it's pristine, it's fine, it's good, so our asset is secure.
I was able to walk Mr. Lula through some of the other building, through some of the other classrooms. We have desks tilted down so the dust doesn't collect. During the parent-teacher conferences, we had our cleaning crews go to the building, clean, sweep, cobwebs, dust, what have you. We've been doing that every 3 to 6 months to maintain, the cleanliness of the building, and that's something we'll continue to do. Last item I have. When we closed Lincoln Way North, a number of board members had requested, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have to do something with that building. And at the time, I made the request that the board be patient as we get settled in and stabilize operation in 3 of our buildings. We now have a year and a half under our belt. Our operations are stable. Rich and his people have done a good job. Our teachers are settled. We're in a good place. With that being said, now we need to determine, okay, are there any potential uses? What are the uses? What do we do moving forward? Brad has taken some time to determine the estimated cost to cover the price of the outstanding bonds that would be attributed to Lincoln Way North. So we have a dollar figure. That dollar figure is in excess of $100 million. If we were to do something, we would have to work closely with bond counsel and financial advisor to determine what structures, what options there would be. But we know that cost is going to be in the $100 million ballpark. We know the cost of that building as it sits in terms of O&M. We had anticipated it would cost about $600,000 to sit. Last year, we spent about $300,000. We know that O&M associated with operating that building would be anywhere from $1.5 to $2.3 million, a couple million. Not utilized as a school. If we were going to utilize that as a Lincoln Way High School, we know it's going to be an additional $6, maybe $7 million. But for it to operate, for us to turn on the air, the heat, the water, to clean, it would be a couple $1 million. We have not yet had any organization or group that has been willing to cover at least that cost for me to even come back to the board and say, okay, somebody's willing to at least cover the cost now. What would we determine a cost for depreciation and use and in addition? We're not to that point. So what I would like to do at this point, we began to develop an RFQ for an appraisal of the property. So what we would do is send an RFQ out to a number of commercial appraisal companies, receive their RFQ, what they would be willing to charge us to get an appraisal. See if that appraisal matches what we owe. And then at that point, we would bring the RFQ back to the board for discussion, direction, and potential exploration of options. So I guess all I'm asking for at this point is if you're comfortable with us moving forward with an RFQ to even bring that back to the board for discussion as we move forward. Any thoughts?
Well, you have a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
Make sure I understand.
Okay.
So your initial request is to go out for an RFQ to get the building appraised.
Correct.
And-
The request for qualifications of companies that can do the appraisal.
Correct. And a price, what they would charge.
So
We
the fee.
we have no idea what it might cost to appraise something like the building that
Right,
size.
that's the first.
So we wouldn't move forward until we brought this back and we'd bring it back and say, okay, we received these 3 different sets of qualifications at these 3 different price points. Give us some direction. But at this point, before even any discussion or debate or anything, I think that would be that would be a prudent step. And that's going off of conversations that occurred, immediately when the building was closed, and I asked for some time and patience as we worked through. We're to a point now where we can, we know if we were to lease it, what would cover our costs. At the time, we weren't sure, and now we know that. And then also, I guess it's up for discussion and options.
So you're trying to just determine what the building is basically worth sitting there as is right now?
Well, and also, they would do a best and highest use.
Okay.
So you're doing as is.
Best and highest use.
So that would be part of the RFQ.
Correct.
And the bond number that Brad worked on to get, that's just kind of out there as a number for what purpose?
Number of what purpose? It would be our understanding that any potential sale, we would have to cover the portion of the bonds that were still attached to North. So we would have to, if the board gave us direction that, hey, that's the direction we want to go, we've already gone through and determined the cost associated with the North High School. We would get a little bit more micro, I guess, would be the term.
You did an attribution of what was called down from the bonds that went to the building in North versus the updates.
Renovations at Eastern Central, and yes, correct.
Was that reviewed by like a third party, EMA?
Right. So I gathered all the data, put it together, sent it up to PMA, had them run through it and, tweak it and Power 5.
So they kind of acknowledge that that's a good number for this purpose.
Reasonable number.
Right, okay.
I mean, that number would obviously be verified again down the road.
Absolutely. I mean, if
Right
we were,
now, that's the
yes,
number.
yes.
Seems like the right direction.
I think we have to determine
At
what.
some point we gotta go.
Yeah.
Can't keep sitting there looking at it.
Also, can you, maybe by next meeting, we look at tonight functional capacity, and looking at Steve's report, and we're talking around 9,000. When we closed North in 15, we looked at maybe we need 800 students to reopen it. In addition to this going down and functional capacity being at 9,000, how many more students do we need that we would entertain the 9,000 functional and then be enough to even consider looking at North, where what the feasibility is if you could put something
We can do that.
like that together?
Yep.
I guess it's 6 times a day, we got a good point.
So you're going to go ahead and put that RQ, and that'll be in February.
I don't know, Brad, will we have the responses yet, you think?
Yeah, well,
Be close.
a little bit close. I'll push to, I'll have it ready, so I'll get it out next week. We should be able to have it back.
Hopefully for February.
Right. I'd like to have it back, I'd like to keep this moving.
Okay.
I mean, do we know if anybody is even capable of appraising a?
We do.
Public school.
We've talked to our architects, and they've provided us references,
Okay.
not references, but names of other companies that would be willing to do this. So we at least have 4 or 5 we will be able to send it out to.
Okay.
district business, any members have anything to share with us tonight?
Beard comes off tomorrow.
Appreciate that. Good to have one.
Yep.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session, or closed session, I'm sorry, to discuss collective negotiating and student discipline cases. Is there a motion to go into closed session? Motion, is there a second? Second. Motion, is there a second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So we're now in closed session. No. There'll be no business to conduct when we come back.